Dear conference participants, I'm Dastan Kasmamita from Kyrgyzstan, and I'm honored to give this speech as a youth delegate and want to highlight major recommendations from Regional Youth Forum in Istanbul, which recently gathered young activists from 40 youth organizations across the region. First of all, we are not a homogeneous group. Rather, we are very different and diverse from sometimes extremely contrasting social and cultural backgrounds, educational levels, and economic status. Among us, there are many young people who suffer everyday humiliations, injustice, discrimination, and violence from their friends, families, neighbors, classmates, local authorities, and state institutions. These extremely vulnerable and marginalized youth groups include young people and adolescents with disabilities, with low socioeconomic status, young people with diverse social orientation, gender identities, and expressions, from ethnic minorities, indigenous First Nations, and traveling communities, including Roma, living in rural areas, living with HIV and AIDS, and also young drug users, sex workers, out of school, migrants, and refugees. Our needs and realities intersect and overlap. For example, I have a young transgender friend with a disability from a small city of Vosh in Kyrgyzstan, who, due to stigma and discrimination, can access education and health services. She lost her mom, who was trying to protect her child from a transphobic person and was killed by him. Many other people experience stigma, discrimination, or violence, or even are violently killed in the region when states fail to respect our rights. It's essential, therefore, that our governments respect our diversities by recognizing our multiple needs and realities in rights-based laws, policies, and programs. The special attention should be also paid for young human rights defenders who advocate and protect their rights often in unsafe environments with corrosive national regulations, including intimidation, torture, and unlawful detention. In our region, there are still thousands of cases when human rights of young people are violated, and often violence is justified on the basis of cultural traditional and religious values and practices. The resolution passed by the UN Human Rights Council in 2012 calls for promoting human rights and fundamental freedoms through a better understanding of traditional values of humankind. This ignores the dynamic nature of traditional practice, undermines decades of rights respecting progress, and allows countries to use traditional values as a tool of oppression and structural violence. We want to be clear. We respect our cultural, traditional, and religious values, but they should not contradict our basic human rights. Therefore, it's very crucial that governments harmonize their national laws with the requirements of ratified international human rights conventions and implement effective monitoring and accountability mechanisms to ensure young people can report and seek remedies and redress. Human rights are human rights everywhere, from Seattle to Bishkek, and human rights has to be seen not as a Western value, rather as a universal value of the whole humanity. We call for recognition of our sexual rights as human rights. This includes our right to a safe, satisfying, and pleasurable sex life, to make informed decisions regarding our bodies, our bodily integrity, and our freedom to decide if and when to have children. It also includes removal of mandatory and coercive HIV, STI, and pregnancy testing, mandatory waiting periods for abortion services, parental and spousal notification and consent for accessing SRHR services. Additionally, governments should implement appropriate anti-discrimination mechanisms through which incidences of discrimination, hate crime, and coercion can be reported and addressed. To ensure the work of such mechanisms, governments, civil society, and UN agencies must provide rights-based sensitization trainings for law enforcement agencies, medical professionals, and other stakeholders. Criminalization of sex workers, people living with HIV, and people with diverse sexual orientations, gender identities, fuels and fosters violence against them, hinders the ability to maintain their physical, sexual, and reproductive health, marginalizes and socially isolates them, and fosters discriminatory practices against them. That is why the criminalization of abortion, sex work, HIV status, sexual orientation, and gender identity is crucial for securing human rights of the most vulnerable groups of young people. Governments must eliminate sexual and gender-based violence, early and forced marriage, domestic violence, marital rape, other forms of violence, with particular attention to ensuring the rights of adolescent girls and young women to safety and bodily integrity. These laws must be supported by policies and programs focused on prevention of violence and guaranteeing access to justice for victims of violence. Our central recommendation is that governments integrate a human rights-based approach to all laws, policies, and programs, particularly population and health-related policies and programs, to ensure that our dreams come true. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your statement. I now give the floor